Portrait to Landscape. Chapter 2, The Current Landscape, Challenge to Opportunity. We stand now where two roads diverge, but unlike the roads in Robert Frost's familiar poem, they are not equally fair. The road we have long been traveling is deceptively easy, a smooth superhighway on which we progress with great speed, but at its end lies disaster. The other fork of the road, the one less traveled by, offers our only chance to reach a destination that assures the preservation of the earth. The choice, after all, is ours to make. Rachel Carson. Humanity stands at a pivotal moment in its history, with scientists warning that we must urgently change our trajectory within this decade. Failure to do so will lead us blindly down a road towards a bleak and disastrous future. In the prevailing paradigm, the land is often viewed solely through an economic lens, as a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be overcome, and a resource to be exploited. It is seen as something to be controlled, manipulated, and subdued. However, there is an alternative road that is frequently overlooked, the scenic route. This route embraces the contours of the landscape, appreciates its intrinsic beauty, and harnesses its natural attributes. By taking the scenic route, we unlock vistas, discover the precious gifts of the land, and optimize the experience of our journey. To make an informed choice about which road to take, we must have a clear understanding of both options. It is crucial to be well informed about the facts and comprehend the advantages and disadvantages of each way. In order to assist you in this decision-making process, I will highlight the stark environmental challenges that have intensified since Rachel Carson's groundbreaking book, Silent Spring. These challenges include climate change, the alarming loss of biodiversity and ecosystems, and the mounting pressures of human population growth. This chapter delves into the concept of planetary limits that must be upheld to ensure a safe and hospitable environment for human survival. Additionally, it introduces the potential of nature-based solutions as a means to address these pressing challenges. By harnessing the extraordinary capabilities of nature, humanity can choose to transform environmental crises into life-changing opportunities. As Carson aptly observed, the choice, after all, is ours to make. Rachel Carson, a legendary nature writer, biologist, and conservationist, emerged as one of the first voices to inform the public about the harmful impact of human actions on the environment. In 1962, her seminal work, Silent Spring, shook the world by revealing the catastrophic consequences of our reckless and destructive behavior towards nature. Moreover, Carson eloquently advocated for the preservation of the living world, stressing that the stewardship of nature's delicate balance is essential for human survival. Silent Spring quickly became a bestseller and sparked intense debate, earning its reputation as one of the most controversial books of its time. It ignited a wave of discourse, underscoring the profound interdependence between humans and nature that unfolds in the landscapes we inhabit. In the 2 decades leading up to the publication of Silent Spring, chemicals such as DDT were widely used to combat insect-borne diseases and protect crops from pests. DDT was hailed as a revolutionary discovery and celebrated as a miracle substance. Films from that time depict the indiscriminate spraying of DDT without considering its potential dangers. However, the dangers of this seemingly miraculous chemical soon came to light. Scientific studies began to show that DDT killed not only the intended pests, but many other life forms and even entire ecosystems. In 1958, one of Rachel Carson's friends, Olga Owens-Huckins, owner of a bird sanctuary in Massachusetts, witnessed the poisoning of thousands of birds by planes indiscriminately spraying DDT over vast landscape areas. She was horrified that more spraying was planned and that she had no recourse to stop this senseless wildlife extermination. She asked Carson for help. Around the same time, Carson, working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, came across a study titled DDT, Its Effects on Fish and Wildlife, which she believed the public needed to know about. Biologists within the field were aware of the dangerous effects of DDT and other new chemical substances being used. But this information wasn't reaching the wider public. Remembering her friend's words, Carson explains that the tragedy of a spring without voices moved her to action. Carson's message was one of caution. She brought attention to the need for a thoughtful approach to technological advancements. She highlighted the potential long-term effects of chemical substances on the natural world, and eloquently described the intricate interdependencies between living organisms and their environment. As she had expected, once the public was aware, they sat up and listened. In fact, they did more than listen. A whole environmental movement began. Unsurprisingly, Carson faced intense opposition and attempts to discredit her work. Detractors labeled her as a communist, a hysterical woman, a Luddite, unscientific, and a purveyor of distorted facts. Despite the backlash, Carson remained resolute, and though modest, would not be silenced. She was determined. The public must decide whether it wishes to continue on the present road, and it can only do so when in full possession of the facts. Carson's unwavering commitment to sharing the truth disrupted a human-centric worldview, illuminating the impact of human actions and our dependence on the delicate balance of nature. Had she been alive today, one could only imagine Carson's continued dedication to raising awareness about the escalating environmental crisis, including climate change, habitat loss, biodiversity decline, and the loss of bird songs. The specter of a silent spring grows ever closer. Climate change. Every day, the news brings us undeniable evidence of environmental decline. Climate change stories dominate the headlines, painting a grim picture of the current state of our planet. In 2022, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, the United Nations authoritative body on climate science, issued a code red for humanity, sounding the alarm on the urgent need for action. The impact of climate change spares no one and no place. The effects of a warming climate, primarily caused by the accumulation of heat-trapping greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, have already made their mark on our lives. From the deepest oceans to the highest mountains, from the thawing Arctic to expanding deserts, and from rural landscapes to bustling cities, the consequences are evident. The scope and severity of climate change surpass even the predictions of climate scientists, with its rate of acceleration outpacing expectations. The catastrophic events of the past years have become impossible to ignore. Extreme heat waves, droughts, and floods have inflicted profound damage worldwide. If greenhouse emissions are not halved by 2030, these events will only worsen. Nature and society are experiencing severe disruption, resulting in limited access to healthy food and clean water, compromised health and well-being, and the destruction of homes, livelihoods, and infrastructure. Global climate changes exacerbate hazards and intensify the risk of extreme weather events. Over the past 5 decades, the number of weather-related disasters has increased 5-fold, with droughts, floods, storms, and extreme temperatures causing significant human losses. This decade has already witnessed some of the most devastating natural disasters on record. One striking example is the monstrous floods in Pakistan, which submerged a third of the country, an area larger than the UK, in 2022. Approximately 33 million people were displaced. 1/7 of the country's population became climate refugees overnight. Like many other developing countries, Pakistan only contributes 0.9% of the world's carbon footprint, yet they bear the brunt of climate change. The injustice of this situation will become evident as we explore the reasons behind it. Similarly, South Asia's deadly floods and landslides have driven 12 million people from their homes in India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. The flooding was so intense in Bangladesh in 2022 that a third of the country was underwater. While monsoons are a natural part of the local climate, they have been intensified by rising sea surface temperatures in South Asia. In the Horn of Africa region, higher and more persistent sea temperatures, a consequence of climate change, have led to extreme heat waves on land. As a result, the likelihood of drought has doubled, leading to severe and repeated droughts over the past decade. These droughts have devastated crops and livestock, leaving people without food and water and forcing millions to abandon their homes. The reality is that those who bear the tremendous burden of climate change are the least responsible. People in poor countries, who are by far the lowest emitters of climate-changing carbon, are at least 4 times as likely to be displaced by extreme weather than those in rich countries. Several factors contribute to this disparity. Firstly, low-income populations heavily rely on agriculture and natural resources, which are highly susceptible to changing weather patterns and ecosystem disruptions. Secondly, marginalized communities often reside in hazardous areas prone to flooding, landslides, and erosion. Thirdly, racial minorities, indigenous peoples, and women with fewer resources are disproportionately affected due to their exposure to health hazards and lack of resources for relocation. Finally, these communities lack the necessary emergency infrastructure to respond effectively to disasters, making recovery exceedingly difficult. In all cases, the threats of climate change exacerbate existing vulnerabilities and further burden already stressed landscapes. In Part 4 of this book, specifically Chapter 10, we explore ways to direct investments and support towards these nations, unlock funds for addressing loss and damages, and shift government subsidies from harmful activities to initiatives that combat climate change and restore landscapes. Additionally, Chapter 11 proposes practices to empower Indigenous peoples and local communities to manage land using the wisdom of their traditions. Integrated and long-term landscape strategies are imperative to address the threats of climate change globally. While poorer countries bear a more noticeable impact, wealthy nations are not immune to climate change and increasingly severe weather events. Australia, after experiencing its hottest year in 2020, faced its most devastating bushfire season, with fires engulfing 10 million hectares, approximately 25 million acres, displacing thousands of people and decimating entire communities. The fires also claimed the lives of over 1 billion native animals, leaving many species and ecosystems unable to recover. My homeland, Canada, has also suffered. In 2021, we witnessed a record-breaking temperature of 49.6 degrees Celsius, or 121 degrees Fahrenheit, in Lytton, British Columbia, concealed under an extreme heat dome. Tragically, a day after this scorching high, a devastating wildfire swept through the town, consuming it entirely. This heat wave, the deadliest in Canadian history, claimed the lives of over 600 people. It resulted in the deaths of 650,000 farm animals, 1 billion seashore animals, and massive mortality among other marine life. Thousands of birds faced dehydration and starvation, while trees withered, crops failed, wildfires raged, and glaciers melted. During the same autumn, I received distressing messages from family and friends about severe storms, landslides, and extensive flooding in the Fraser River Valley of British Columbia. These calamities were intrinsically linked to the wildfires ignited by the heat dome, which destabilized soils and slopes months earlier. Once again, lives were lost, mass evacuations took place, and critical infrastructure and property were destroyed. The estimated cost of restoration is projected to reach 10 billion Canadian. Just months prior, no one in the temperate Pacific Northwest could have fathomed such extreme weather events. Suddenly, the Greater Vancouver region, often hailed as one of the most livable places on Earth, transformed into one of the most dangerous. Even the polar regions are profoundly impacted. Antarctica and Greenland are losing ice mass at an alarming rate due to rising ocean and air temperatures. Many scientists view this ice loss as the most alarming consequence and a crucial element in the progression towards a hothouse Earth. The albedo effect, where ice and snow reflect sunlight and heat, plays a vital role in regulating our planet's temperature. However, as white ice and snow transform into blue water or brown earth, the ability to reflect light diminishes, leading to a positive feedback loop that drives escalating temperatures. This cascade of events could easily tip the balance, causing irreversible changes such as ice-to-water transformation, loss of polar habitats, ocean and planetary warming, disruption of normal ocean circulation, rising sea levels, and inundation of vast productive lands, including numerous cities worldwide. Undoubtedly, melting polar ice poses one of the gravest threats to people and our planet. Arctic ecosystems are also under severe threat, endangering indigenous species like seals, walruses, wolves, foxes, polar bears, and countless plants, lichens, and mosses that depend on stable sea ice platforms. However, with Arctic sea ice declining by over 12% per decade, this fragile ecosystem is rapidly destabilizing, and polar species are struggling to keep pace with rapid changes and adaptation. No part of the globe remains untouched. From pole to pole and everywhere in between, our planet is undergoing climate-induced transformations. This reality underscores the urgent need to improve land health and support natural processes and systems, enabling landscapes to withstand the increasing burden. By doing so, we can enhance the lives of both humans and nature. Part 4 of this book explores various nature-based solutions that can contribute to landscape mitigation strategies, climate adaptation, resilience improvement, and the prevention of vulnerability to the environmental changes we are already experiencing. Before exploring solutions, it is crucial to examine the environmental challenges in greater detail, including global warming, ecological collapse, and population expansion. Understanding the scope of these challenges will illuminate the changes necessary for a sustainable future.